Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Let's go ahead and dive in because, listen, we don't know what the impact of Nick Saban's, decision to retire is going to be on the field in 2024, 2025, and recruiting and this and that, etc. But what I can tell you is this. Through about 2 weeks since Nick Saban decided to retire, I don't think you could argue there has been any bigger benefactor than the Ohio State Buckeyes, because over the weekend, they got not one, but two mega commitments that were part of the Alabama program as of 2 weeks ago. I know you know about it, but we got to dive in because there is a bigger picture conversation here. The first one happened late Friday, and it was both a stunner and not really a stunner. The first one was Caleb Downs, that safety that I told you about last week here on this show. He was, I don't think it's hyperbole to say, maybe the best defensive freshman that Nick Saban ever had. Led the team in tackles with 107, something that has never been done in the history of Alabama. In the history of Alabama football, they cannot find on record a true freshman leading the team in tackles. Well, he was awesome. And about last Tuesday or Wednesday, he decided to enter the portal. Why I bring it up is because when he entered the portal, it felt as though Georgia was the favorite. We talked about it last week. Travaris Robinson was the defensive backs coach who recruited Caleb Downs to Alabama. He is now an assistant at Georgia. But as the week went on, I'll be honest, I started to hear a little buzz that maybe Ohio State could sneak in. Well, on Friday night, how about this? Caleb Downs, the 5-star former safety, All-American this year at at Alabama, he commits to Ohio State. Why that's important, why it's relevant, it's obviously huge. Plug and play All-American. We'll talk about him with Ohio State in a second. The thing is, though, he is not the only former Alabama 5-star superstar that has committed to Ohio State in recent days. That was because on Sunday, right as everybody got set for NFL football, Detroit, Tampa Bay, and of course, KC Buffalo, we find out that Julian Sayin, who was the #1 quarterback recruit in this current high school class 2024, he enrolled early at Alabama, went through practices for the bowl game, etc. Well, when Nick Saban decided to retire, he himself entered the portal. Was from Southern California, was believed to be either USC, maybe Ohio State gets in the mix. Well, Ohio State landed him too on Sunday afternoon. And so when you add in the two guys that Ohio State got this weekend from Alabama with everything else that has happened this offseason, two things I believe are true. One, Ryan Day, a guy I have been critical of, has had an offseason for the ages and needs to be commended for it. Two, I'll be honest, I think Ohio State should be the favorite going into 2024. And again, I say that as a guy that has been critical of Ryan Day over recent weeks and recent years. So let's dive in, and let me start by saying this isn't just about these two kids committing, but I do think they are two big cherries on top of the sundae, okay? So first of all, if people don't follow the day-to-day with Ohio State, here is basically everything that has happened since they lost to Missouri in the Cotton Bowl December 29th. First off, they got the quarterback that they believe they need, the quarterback that they believe is going to elevate the program in the here and now. That is veteran Will Howard. Now, I was a little bit critical of the commitment, but what is indisputable, Will Howard will have so much talent around him that if he is any type of quarterback at all, he is going to thrive, maybe be a Heisman candidate. But on top of Will Howard, should mention, by the way, Ohio State also had the number 3 recruiting class in 2024. So that happened in December. It probably would have been number 2 when you factor in Julian Sayin is now part of that group. But anyway, I'm rambling. Bottom line, since the season ended, since the Cotton Bowl, they go ahead and get Will Howard. On top of that, they went out and got Quinshon Judkins, the running back from Ole Miss, 2,500 yards rushing in his 2 seasons at Ole Miss. I keep saying it. Amazing stat. He is the first running back that in his freshman and sophomore year combined to rush for 2,500 yards. First guy in the SEC to do it since some guy named Herschel Walker, okay? That is pretty darn good. That is awesome. He is now an Ohio State Buckeye. But more importantly, it's not just the guys they're bringing in. It's the guys that they have retained as well. And there is not a single program that convinced, I think, a lot of fringe, maybe late first, early second, third round picks to come back, elevate your stock, win a natty, and be in better position next year in the NFL. We've talked about it. We don't need to go through all of them, but leading rusher Travion Henderson was awesome this year, but also missed about 3.5 games. When he was healthy, he was as good as any running back in college football, but he decides to come back. Emeka Egbuka, second leading receiver, 46 catches. That was down from a year ago when he was basically an All-American. Well, he was hurt, going to come back, try to be wide receiver 1, and be in position to go as in the first round next year. You have a situation where on top of that, on the defensive line, JT Tuimoloau, All-American, good enough to go maybe in the first this year, wants to come back. Jack Sawyer coming back. Donovan Jackson, an offensive lineman, coming back. So you talk about legitimately. I don't think there's any other program in college football that can say this. 6 or 7 guys that could have been drafted that are coming back to Ohio State next year. That is, again, on top of Will Howard as a veteran at quarterback, Quinshon Judkins at running back, and oh, by the way, the best defensive player in the portal in Caleb Downs. Also, I didn't even mention, in that 2024 recruiting class, the number 1 player in America, Jeremiah Smith, a wide receiver. And also, I think it's important to note, Julian Sayin, your quarterback of the future. So you have now stacked the recruiting, the quarterback room, where you now have a 5-star NFL caliber guy ready to take over a year from now. And so listen, what I would say about this whole situation is this. I have been critical of Ryan Day. I've said a lot of mean things about him, but one thing I will always do, and if you're an Ohio State fan watching or listening to this, and this is the first time you've ever heard of me, one thing I am not ashamed to do, I take L's all the time. And one thing about me, I am always going to base my current opinion on the information that I have now, and I'm willing to shift off opinions, right? People in the media, so often they get stuck on that opinion. This is how it is. This is this. This is that. No. That's not Taurus. If I get something wrong, if I get new information and my previous opinion is dead wrong, I'm going to own it and basically say, look, I thought this, but now I think this. And what I think is Ryan Day has done everything any Ohio State fan could ask of him. By the way, I know I'll get a lot of this too. Well, he hired Bill O'Brien as his offensive coordinator. And listen, here's my thought on that. Bill O'Brien was not great as the offensive coordinator at Alabama over the last couple of years. But at the same time, Bill O'Brien had complete autonomy over that offense. And by the way, when I say not great, they did not live up to potential. Ohio State fans say, oh, they were 5th nationally in this and 3rd. No. They did not live up to their potential. Bryce Young bailed them out of all sorts of stuff. I bring it up, though, to very simply say, Bill O'Brien is your offensive coordinator. I don't really care because Ryan Day is still overseeing him. I wouldn't trust Bill O'Brien without any autonomy at all, but if Ryan Day is overseeing him, I still trust him. And so I bring it up because I got to give Ryan Day credit. Listen, I could sit here and stick with my opinion from the day after the last Michigan game and they stink and no. He has done everything right. And I truly believe he has not only built a national championship contender, I believe he has built what should be the preseason number 1 team in the country going into next year. Now, will they be? That I can't tell you. I don't vote in the AP. I can't tell you who should be number 1, who is number 1, whatever. And my hunch is Georgia will probably be number 1. They return a ton, including Carson Beck. They're in the SEC. We know there's SEC bias. On top of that, they've won a lot of games. And if you want to vote Georgia number 1, that's fine. But what I will also tell you is that Ohio State probably has more front-end veteran talent than anyone in college football. So I would vote them number 1. I believe they are the favorites going in. And I don't know, you can look at it as one of 2 ways. It does put more pressure on Ryan Day, but he's got the squad to back it up. There have been years, like this year you watched them. I said, I don't think they're explosive enough offensively. Now, part of it was the quarterback. We've talked about that, but I'm just bringing it up to say there have been years where there has been an expectation of Ohio State that I'm not sure was realistic. Well, next year, I don't want to say it's quite national championship or bust, but it's probably pretty close. We'll see what happens. But I got to give Ryan Day credit, man. He came through in the clutch. He has been unbelievable. Talk about 2024, the year of Ryan Day so far, baby. We'll see what happens in September when the games start, but I got to give him credit where it's due, man. He has been unbelievable.